All right. Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me. My name's Cal. If this is your first time joining, I'm a developer, hopefully, and I run an online community for e-commerce people at joinecommercegrowth.com. Give me your favorite emoji if you guys can hear me. Just type it in chat if you would. Let me know for sure that I'm on, and we'll get started here. Again, my name's Cal, and today what I wanted to talk about is growing to six figures in e-commerce. So, I've worked in e-commerce for a long time, and I run an e-commerce agency called Epic Design Labs in addition to my own stores. And, I've noticed some things working with store owners over the years, and these are some definite, like, consistent things that happen as hey, Josh. These are some definite things that are consistent and that happen as you're growing, right? So, I kind of break people down or break stores down into multiple stages of growth, and I think that it's kind of beneficial to look at it this way because it helps store owners kind of understand where they are and the differences between where they are and the next step where they wanna be, right? Because when you get started in e-commerce, there's so many people there's so many people, telling you, "Well, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, you gotta do these 50 things. If you don't do these 50 things, then you're just dead in e-commerce." That's not true. Um, you definitely want to get to those 50 things over time, but the art is in understanding that you don't start at the finish line, you start at the starting line, and everybody starts at the starting line. And, figuring out, like, when we're little kids, right, we don't start out, like, with, learning college math. We start out learning how to poop in the potty and feed ourselves, and e-commerce is really no different, except that we all know how to poop and potty already. I have a 4-year-old, so we're dealing with that all the time. And so here's what I've noticed. I'm gonna share it a little bit with you guys. Let's see here. Can I share the right screen? Here we go. All right. So here's what I call stages of growth for e-commerce. This is what I've noticed after working in e-commerce for 13 years with store owners and having experienced much of this myself is that everybody starts in stage one, which is going from 0 to 20K a month, let's say. And this is a little bit arbitrary, but I've noticed that there's definitely some consistencies in numbers, right? So there's not many people that are still struggling with these stage one type of problems when they're doing $1 million a month. Like it's just not possible, right? So stage one is where people are finding an initial traffic source, finding some way to get consistent new eyeballs into their store. And at the same time, because you haven't validated your actual proof of concept yet, this is what I'm talking about where I say POC, you're still working on that, right? So you have to figure out how to get content and I'm sorry, how to get traffic. And then you have to use the traffic to validate that your product makes sense and the way that you're selling your product makes sense and the way that you're speaking to the public makes sense. And so stage one is all about just going from like 0 to 1 here, if that makes sense. Um, Figuring out how to get people and how for those people to show you if you're doing things right. Um, it usually takes, I mean, it could take a month for some people, it could take 6 years for some people to get past this stage because you may need to change some things, you know? When you first get started, I think we all have big ideas as to what is going to work, and we all have big dreams, and then you stick your money and your time in the internet, and what happens, happens. And a lot of times, it's not what we expect to happen. And that may be you, right? Uh, you may be struggling. You may be like a couple years in and going, "Am I ever gonna get there?" Right? What you're learning in stage 1 is how to attract the right people and how to have the right thing for those right people so that they stick their credit card in the internet. And the biggest thing that I find is critical to success here is pivoting, right? It's trying new things and pivoting until you find success. That is key. It's really key through your whole journey, but it's key in stage one because what you think is going to happen usually isn't exactly what's going to happen. And when what does happen happens and it's not what you think is going to happen when it happens, then you have to go, huh, what am I going to do different? How am I going to phrase this differently? How am I going to attract a different type of person? So it's all about learning when you're in stage one, is learning who our audience is. Hey Alan, thanks for joining us. And I appreciate you guys joining me live, by the way. I'm going to start doing lives on a regular basis. Going to make a good habit and try and share what I have with you guys. And so I appreciate if you guys, can be collaborative and let me know what your questions are as I'm chatting with you. And afterwards, we'll have a formal Q&A session. But I'm here to answer your questions. I've done this for a long time, and I'm not saying I know everything, but I want to share with you guys what I do know. So what I do know. Thanks for joining us, Razu. Stage 2 is when you're escaping the 20 grand a month mark. This is when you start getting to do 20 to 50 grand a month. And what I see is that people that are in this stage are trying to start working with some additional people. When you're in the 0 to 20 stage, a lot of times it's you by yourself and it's really lonely, and you're talking to your friends and you're talking to your parents and trying to get somebody to just, make you feel like you have a community, and it's really tough. But in stage 2, now is when you've kind of validated your proof of concept a little bit more, and you're starting to you're starting to this is where you start here's how you know you're in stage 2 is you start thinking to yourself, "Maybe this is gonna work." Right? May maybe I'm gonna be able to quit my job eventually, you know? It's when you start getting traction, right? And you start feeling it. So your wheels are turning. They're not just spinning now, they're turning, which is really great. So when you're in stage 2, you're making 20 to 50K monthly revenue numbers we're talking about. And you start working with freelancers, you start hitting up people on Upwork, and for better or worse, you're dealing with the freelancers, and it's kind of rough dealing with freelancers, but this is what you gotta do when you're in this stage, and don't feel bad. Like, I get a lot of people applying to work with me and with my agency, and, they feel like, I can't afford to hire somebody that's legit, and so I have to use these guys." Don't feel bad. That's what everyone's doing. That's what everyone does when they're in these first 2 stages, and you have to do it to get to stage 3, right? So, a lot of this is working with freelancers. You're starting to think, I got some traffic coming in from SEO or PPC or YouTube or TikTok or whatever. Maybe I need to start thinking about this email marketing everybody's talking about. Maybe I need to start sending newsletters, right? These are the things that you're thinking about. Maybe I need to get into SMS. So you start thinking about Klaviyo. You know, there are other email systems out there, but Klaviyo is really, really good. Hey, Alan, thanks for joining us. So this is kind of the challenges that we are in stage 2, and this is why I'm kind of laying out the different stages, so you can see, like, if you guys are listening to me right now and you're in stage 1, you're hearing all this stuff, you're hearing all the gurus, and they're telling you got to go mile a minute, and you're thinking, man, I'm just struggling to even you know, stay afloat, right? Don't worry about all that stuff. Stage 1, just worry about one traffic source and getting your proof of concept, like getting it to where you can get people to show up, and those people will buy because you got something that they want, right? You don't have to be perfect, but you're getting resonance, right? Stage 2 is when you start thinking, okay, I got resonance. What's the next step? And the next step is usually email. So people in stage 2 are usually starting to think about, how do I get this email marketing thing working? How do I make my abandoned cart emails more successful? These kind of thoughts. This is what gets you from stage 2 to stage 3. So stage 3 is when we're making usually between 75 and 100K a month in monthly revenue. If that sounds like a ton, then what I want you to kind of see here in these stages of growth is that the difference between stage 1 and stage 3 isn't that you're working 20 times more hours per day. It isn't that you've invested $1 billion. It's not that you got an SBA loan for $250,000. It's not any of these things. It's that you figured out a traffic source. You figured out your proof of concept. You figured out your messaging. You figured out a couple people to work with. You figured out email marketing, or at least you got started on it, right? And so the commonality between these things, if you notice, is the figuring out of things. It's not the investing in $1 billion. You don't see on any of my stages here that stage two is when you invested $1 billion into your brand. It's that you figured things out. And this is what's so empowering to me about e-commerce is that it's all about cracking the code. It's about getting a good product. It's about figuring out how to talk to people, figuring out who to talk to, figuring out how to email people. It's a series of figuring things out. So when you work a regular job, then it's about how do I get to the next level? How do I make myself more valuable? Or how do I put in my time? Or how do I get somebody else to retire so I could take their spot? You're waiting on all these external factors. In e-commerce, it's all about you and what can you figure out and how long does it take to figure it out. So the sooner that you get through these things, the faster you get there. It doesn't matter whether it takes you a month or 6 years. Like, you're gonna get there. It's just a matter of how many things do you figure out between here and there, and that's just so empowering to me, at least. So in stage 3, this is when we start thinking about multiple traffic sources, right? We start thinking about custom design, custom branding, making our brand really legit. And I know some people get obsessed with that at stage 1. And my suggestion, even though I run a design development agency, is don't get so obsessed with it at stage 1 and stage 2. Like, you have other things to worry about. You need your site to look really good, but you don't need to reinvent the wheel design and branding wise. Excuse me. At stage 3, we start working with agencies. The freelancers are getting kind of annoying, which is why I wrote agencies are greater than freelancers. And it's because you need to work with professionals. Once you're making, $1 million a year in revenue, those guys on Upwork, while they were cheap at stage 1 and stage 2, they are time consuming at stage 3, and you don't have time to mess around with that. Right. So this is when people start working with agencies. They start really dialing in their Klaviyo, and that's email marketing, email and SMS. Klaviyo is by far the gold standard in email marketing. If you haven't heard of it somehow by now, you just did. Klaviyo is what you want to use for email marketing. Um, and amplifiers. So I wrote down amplifiers because this is a concept that I talk about a lot. Um, Let me come back to it here in just a minute. But stage 4 is when we're making 200 grand a month in revenue or more. So you're doing 2.5 million, $5 million, maybe $10 million a year in annual revenue. And I just wrote PE come sniffing. That's about private equity. You got people showing up saying, have you thought about selling your store? Because this is where private equity becomes interested. And this is really your out, right? When you're in stage 1 and stage 2, you can sell your store if you want out, but you're not going to get that much from it. And you're going to go to some marketplace like Flippa or whatever and sell it for pennies on the dollar, right? When you get to stage 4, if you can prove that your store is capable of making 2, 5, $10 million a year, there's a lot of people that are going to be interested in buying it from you. And that is your exit strategy. So if you're at stage 2 or 3 and figure and asking yourself, like, what's the finish line? Like, I don't want to be, doing this until I'm 75. Like, where do I cash out? Stage 4 is where you cash out. Now, you can cash out earlier if you want. You're just not going to be, you're not going to be, it's not going to be as glorious an exit, if that makes sense. And I say this as a guy that buys stores. If you have an interesting store and you're looking to sell, reach out. I'm interested, as long as it's a good product. I usually buy stores in the stage 3 range, and maybe the stage 2 range, but it's got to be a really good product. But I'm buying stores earlier on in their stage of growth because I know what it takes to get it to stage 4. Most of the time, though, if you can get it to stage 4, you're going to maximize what you sell it for by selling it to private equity or selling it to somebody that's really passionate and doesn't want to start from scratch, right? So your goal should be to get your store up to $1 million to $10 million a year in annual revenue. That's when you hit the eject button, or you consider just being a lifer and keep on going, right? But you got choices now, stage 4. All right, e-commerce amplifiers. What am I talking about? Here's what I consider the six-figure store formula. And this is very easy. And to be honest, it's true for all businesses, even outside of e-commerce. They may not, um, they may not call it the same thing, right? But it all comes down to this: traffic times conversions times average order value times frequency of purchase. Now, those first two links in the chain, traffic and conversions, that's what you're focusing on in stage 1, 2, right? You need traffic because traffic is the fuel for the rest of the machine. But the rest of the machine is conversions times average order value times frequency. And the reason that I write the time symbol in here is that it really is. It's times, right? So if you get traffic times conversion, if you get 1,000 people to show up and your conversion rate is 3%, if you can increase your average order value by 50%, then you increase the result of all of your conversions by 50% too, right? It's a multiple, it's a multiplier. And the same with frequency. If you take that same customer that you get 3%, conversion rate off of those 1,000 people, that's 30. If you get those 30 people to show up 50% more every year, right, by getting them back by using things like email marketing, then you just increase your sales by 50% too. So average order value and frequency and conversion all multiply on top of each other or amplify each other. And the more that you can increase these, like the better you're gonna do, right? So your e-commerce store is a machine. You feed it the traffic, and then the machine is the conversions, the average order value, and the frequency. And the better the machine works, the better the output of the machine is, which is dollars in your pocket. So this is why e-commerce amplifiers are so important, right? Um, they amplify all of your results. They amplify the results of all of your traffic, but not just that, they amplify the results of each other. Right? So your average order value amplifies the results of your increased frequency of purchase, right? So this is like compounding interest kind of, right? And that it does compound. And this is why it's so important. When people are at stage 3, this is when they're really focusing on the rest of the formula, right? So they're focusing on conversions, average order value, and frequency. They bring on an agency like mine to help them work on conversions a lot of times. And they start implementing systems into their e-commerce um, store in order to work on the other ones. Like, for example, reviews, right? Reviews are an amplifier. So, what reviews do is they give you increased social proof, which helps you improve your conversion. So, getting reviews on the page helps more people um, see that they should buy the product because of the social proof, which increases your conversions. But it doesn't just increase your conversions, it also increases your frequency of purchase. And the reason for that is if somebody shows up to your store today and they purchase, $100 worth of stuff, and then a week to 10 days later, they get an email saying, "Hey, would you come back and leave us a review?" They click that and they come back and they leave you a review, which is great to improve the conversion of the next thing. But the first part of that is they came back, right? So if you got 100 people to come back to your store to leave you a review, would more than zero of those people consider making a second purchase while they're there and thinking about how good the first purchase went? The answer is yes, right? This is why reviews are so important. And I see people that are doing, half a million, $1 million in sales, and they're not using a third party review system. But the third party review systems do so much better of a job than like your Shopify or your BigCommerce built-in reviews, um, because they're built to, right? They're built to have a better reach out. They're built to reduce the resistance to leave your review. They're also built to showcase those reviews better on your site. So I really recommend systems like Stamped.io and Yotpo. I like Stamped.io a lot. Yotpo's really, really close second, in my opinion. And there's more of them out there. I don't recommend Trustpilot. Just that's my 2 cents. But our review system is a great amplifier, right? Because it's helping you get more conversions and it's helping you get more frequency of purchase. Another one is loyalty systems. So um, loyalty apps, like, they give you points for purchasing, right? Well, I'll put it this way. I have I have a client that came to me. Sorry, I have a client that came to me, and they have a really well known guitar store, and they're great. And I had been on their site prior to them becoming a client, and, when they came to me, I said, "This is crazy. I was just on your site. I didn't buy from you." And they said, "Why is that?" And the answer was, "Because I realized if I was gonna buy a $2,000 guitar, that's worth some points if a guy has a loyalty program." And so I found a site that had a loyalty program, and that gave me a ton of points that I used to get a little freebie, which was great. Loyalty can be the difference between somebody converting and not converting. And so obviously that can help you with conversions, but did you know it can also help you with average order value and frequency? So if people are realizing that, hey, the more I buy, the more points I get, and they start using their points, it encourages them to buy more, higher average order value, but also frequency of purchase. Because if somebody has points and then you reach out and say, hey, guy, congrats, you have, like, 10,000 points, then a lot of people would look at that and go, I wonder what I can use that for. You know, that sounds great. What does 10,000 points give me? It's just like playing skee ball at the arcade. I guess I'm old. For you kids out there, we used to have these things called arcades. Anyway, um, yeah, so loyalty programs are great for all of the amplifiers, conversions, average order value, and frequency of purchase. And yet, so many stores under $1 million don't have them implemented. Now, again, if you're in stage one, don't worry about all this. This is going to come in stage two and stage three. You can't do everything all at the same time, and that's okay, right? But loyalty programs are huge, right? Some loyalty programs can even help you get user generated content if you're rewarding people for social messaging and things like that. So there's a lot that a loyalty program can do for you. Recurring subscriptions is definitely something that can add to frequency of purchase, because if you're getting people to buy every month or every 6 weeks or whatever, then obviously you're making more sales, right? And that's huge, right? Because number one, you're getting people to come back and purchase from you more, which is obviously average order value or frequency of purchase, but you're also preventing customer loss, because I guarantee you, if somebody else is selling your same product for about the similar price, but they were cutting them a 10% discount for being an auto pay, you'd be losing that customer for future jeez, for future purchases. I'm going to take a drink. You guys have any questions yet? I know I'm just kind of slamming through some stuff. All right, iced tea. This this episode is sponsored by iced tea, the drink. So recurring subscriptions can be huge, and I've had I get asked a lot, like, but is it something that would work for me? And it doesn't work for all businesses. That's the real answer. But it works for more than you would think. Um, what I've seen from a lot of businesses is adding recurring subscriptions can easily add 10 to 15 or more percent to your overall sales within 3 to 6 months. I have one client that's doing more than 30% of his sales through recurring subscriptions. That's huge. That's huge. Because these are people that you don't have to spend advertising money on to get them the second time. So you're way more profitable if you can lock somebody up in a subscription, even if you're giving them a discount. Hey, Jaden, thanks for joining. So recurring subscriptions are another one. And then email and SMS marketing. I mentioned that at both stages 2 and stages 3. Klaviyo just went public a couple weeks ago, and they are a massive company, like massive. it's shocking how big that they are in terms of number of people, but it's really not shocking because they don't have a competitor, in my opinion. There's Omnisend, there's Mailchimp, there's other people that are in the space, but most of them aren't e-commerce focused, and the ones that are e-commerce focused aren't, a tenth as good as Klaviyo. Klaviyo has such good integrations with all of the main carts out there. Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento, WooCommerce. That I'm not a fan of that, but I am a fan of Klaviyo. Klaviyo can do just about anything that you can put your mind to. I'll do entire calls just about Klaviyo at some point. Um, but Klaviyo is amazing, and it can do just about anything that you can think of. So you just got to think of it, right? Um, some of the things people use Klaviyo for the most would be like abandoned cart. And what I see is when people implement Klaviyo to take over their carts built-in abandoned cart system, it usually results in 10 to 20% increase in sales. Just their abandoned cart. Why is it better? Because it looks better, it communicates better, and you can A/B test every step of the way. So you can start out with A/B testing your subject lines and figure out, does this abandoned cart email or this one get opened more, right? And you can test the full sequence, every email in the chain. And then you can test the actual content within it and the looks and the images and everything and get scientifically better. The 10 to 20% boost is what I see people get right off the bat, just using a better system. And over time, if you keep on working on it, if you keep on dialing it in, this is how you end up in stage 4 is doing stuff like this. Um, Klaviyo is a linchpin. Is definitely something you want to focus on if you're in stage 2 and stage 3. And a lot of store owners ask me, what should they get great at? Like, where should they invest their time? Obviously, everything costs money and different amounts of money, but where should you invest your time? And I really interpret that as what's worth becoming great at on a personal level. Should I learn SEO? Should I learn PPC? Should I learn email? Should I learn, Facebook posting and stuff like that? Um, a couple of things I think that are worth learning, and everybody's different. So you may be more adapted to learn one thing than another thing, but a couple of things that I think are super worth listening and learning and becoming great at in-house are product photography, because that is so hard to find somebody to do and to do affordably. There are people that do it, but you could pay $30, $40 an image and you got to replace your images every now and then. I mean, it just costs a grip of money. And when you're paying somebody else to do it, it's not going to come out the same when this guy does it versus that guy does it, because it's different cameras, different lights, different everything. And you want everything to be consistent, right? So if you can get great at product photography, that's huge. And this is one of the things that I see people get great at around the $1 million mark is they stop messing around with product photography. They start doing their own and overcoming their own objections. The other one, hands down, if my store owners, if my clients could become great at email marketing with Klaviyo, it's huge. And don't get me wrong, you can hire me to do it, but learning it yourself and getting great at it, whether you hire someone else or not, super valuable. This is absolutely worth learning is Klaviyo. And then the third thing for sure is understanding SEO concepts so that you can really take control of your content, right? You can always have somebody else do SEO for you and optimize your pages and your posts and all that kind of stuff and do the technical things. But it's hard to find someone to do your content, be your mouthpiece, because this is what your website is. It's about your message. And the more you understand about SEO, the more I feel you understand about content and your audience. And so it's just completing that loop. It's figuring out what they want us what they want to hear, what they want you to say, and how they want you to say it, and deciding what you're going to say based on all that data. This is why I love SEO and SEO tools, because they're telling me what my audience wants to know about, based on their clicks, based on their searches, based on, all that kind of stuff. So email marketing, definitely definitely something worth learning. So again, the e-commerce amplifiers that I went over here for the six-figure store formula, super buzzy uh, formula is reviews, rewards or loyalty, recurring subscriptions, email marketing. Now there's definitely a lot of others that you can pile on, but these are kind of the basics, you know, and they all just kind of come into play at different parts in the journey. All right. So we went through stage one, two, three, and four of growth. Going from 0 to 20 is about finding your traffic source and getting your proof of concept down. Going from 20 to 50 is about working more with freelancers instead of just doing everything yourself. Starting to learn about email marketing and Klaviyo. Stage three, going from 70, going to 75 or 100 is about developing multiple traffic sources. And also, I didn't mention about that, but when you develop multiple traffic sources, you start having traffic play on top of each other, right? So when you start having retargeting that can bring people in from Google Display, from Facebook, from wherever, then those eyeballs that you get from Google PPC, for example, that come in on looking for one product and now they see retargeting ads somewhere else and they're remembering you and they're coming back. These start to really gel. And when you have these things gelling, when you have people coming in from this direction, people coming back from this direction, and then email working from this direction, and people start buying multiple times, this is when you start becoming profitable. So a lot of times at stage one and stage two, because people are really just working with like one or two traffic sources, and it's all about the straight sale, right? Do you want to buy this? Yes. Okay, here it is. Buy. It's hard to make money that way. But once you start saying, okay, do you want to buy this? And they say no, but then they see it somewhere else and they change their mind and they come back and buy it. Like this is recouping dollars that you would have otherwise lost if you weren't mixing multiple traffic methods, right? So stage four, 200 grand or more monthly sales. This is when you want to start thinking about private equity and what does your exit look like? When is that? And there's no straight answer for that because some people sell at $1 million, some people sell at 5 million, 10 million. Some people sell at 100 million bucks. Some people go crazy. All right, questions. If you guys have questions, can start posting them. Let's see here. Jaden says, "Have you tested the BigCommerce checkout and the BigCommerce embedded checkout? How does that blend in a headless setup?" So the BigCommerce embedded checkout is the same as the optimized one-page checkout on BigCommerce, which is their like native one that everybody basically uses, and it works great in headless. It looks great. It works great, and talking about headless, which is, super advanced subject. I appreciate you being here, Jaden. Headless is amazing. Headless with BigCommerce is amazing. And embedded checkout is the easiest checkout method to use on headless. And the reason is it just iframes it right into checkout. What's nice about it is that you're not doing a custom checkout because if you do a custom checkout, which you can fully do with BigCommerce, you're breaking your PCI compliance, and then you end up with a lot of other challenges that a business owner may not think about initially. Now, if you're doing headless, like, you may have so much money at that point, you're probably doing 5-10 million dollars in sales, I'm guessing. Um, you might have what it takes to deal with that as a problem. There are lots of businesses that have to deal with PCI compliance, and that might not be a challenge, but that would be the one thing that would deter me from a true custom checkout. There's a lot of customization you can do with BigCommerce embedded checkout. There's a lot of customization you can do on the BigCommerce checkout. And so a lot of times you can get to where you're trying to get to without using a custom checkout and without taking that PCI compliance on yourself. All right, let's see. Next question. Josh, How can you shift your audience from other avenues like Facebook or Etsy to your e-com store when they've grown accustomed to these other venues? Well, if people like buying from you on Etsy, then they're probably going to keep buying from you on Etsy. Like people shop on Amazon because they like shopping on Amazon and it makes them feel safe. They're in a safe place. And they may not know that you're, jacking up your prices, hopefully, to account for the edge that Amazon and Etsy and Facebook place on top of your products. They all take different amounts. Etsy's not so bad as Amazon for sure, but you know, they're accustomed to buying from them. So there's only so much you can do to get them off that platform. But some of the things you can do, and this may not be great for your terms of service, especially with Amazon, but a lot of people do it is will put they'll put inserts into the boxes, maybe a thank you, maybe something that's not like an overt ad, but something that has your branding on it, like a thank you card or like instructions and things like this that are providing good value to the buyer, but also subtly promoting your brand so the next time they want to buy, when they remember who they bought from, they remember your brand and maybe they Google your brand instead of going back to your Etsy store. So that's one way. Um, another way is making sure that your branded store. So if you have an Etsy store or a Facebook store or an Amazon store that is branded the same as your website, because if you can get enough people buying from your brand and your brand is seen on some of these platforms, I can tell you that, a lot of people get get traffic in their stores without doing any SEO or PPC or anything, just because people saw their product in a positive light on Amazon and then somebody googled that brand that sold that thing, right? So, just making sure that your brand is strong and that people have a good experience with you will make them Google it the next time. All right, more questions. Keep them coming. Let's see. How crucial is market research for a successful e-commerce startup? Yeah, it's pretty crucial. I would say, the more research you do, the more you're gonna understand market fit. Now, you don't know everything about market fit. You don't know everything about what people know or whatever. You don't know everything about what people want to know or what people want to buy, but the more you do know, the faster you're gonna get there. So yeah, I mean, using market research, like what other people are doing, what kind of traffic levels other people are at, what kind of keywords other people are getting searched for, what kind of searches are people doing, using tools like Google suggested search, Google recommended searches, answer the public, Ahrefs and SEMrush. These can tell you all kinds of stuff about what the audience wants. And I mean, just going into Amazon and looking at how much this product versus that product sells can be a lot. I actually have a store where I have products a lot of products that are resold, and I'll use Amazon's bestseller ranking, right? They'll tell you that within this category, here's the rank, right? And the smaller the number, the more it sells. So I'll use that to parse people's list to determine what I want to sell in my store. So if my supplier has 20,000 things, I go on Amazon and use Amazon's bestseller ranks to figure out which ones are really popular. And then I sell those on my store. Like I don't care about selling them on Amazon, but it's nice of Amazon to give me that data, which is awesome. Jaden says, looking to test out the WordPress integration so I can offload PCI compliance to BigCommerce. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. PCI compliance is huge. So PCI compliance, if you guys don't know, is I don't know what it stands for, but here's what it really means is the government wants to make sure that if you're taking credit cards, that those are secure. And so there's all these regulations. This came out probably 10 or 15 years ago, I think when Bush was president, where they didn't want people's data stolen as much or at all, really. And so they said, like, we're going to make sure that in every business that takes credit cards, that somebody is responsible for keeping those secure, and that there's procedures in place that says When we get a credit card, here's what happens with it. Here's where that information is stored or not stored, and here's our procedures. Here's the C-level person that's going to sign on that stuff. Like it's a thing. You got to submit reports to the government. I'm not a PCI compliance expert at all, but I could tell you I don't want to be, and you don't want to be. It's a lot. You have to pay fees. Like there's all this stuff with BigCommerce and Shopify. They they manage the PCI compliance for you. So they're stepping up and saying, if you use our platform and use our checkout, we're going to make sure everything is secure, and we're willing to take the responsibility of that off your hands. That's good. That's really good. So using the BigCommerce embedded checkout, including on BigCommerce for WordPress, I would say highly recommended because you're not gonna have PCI compliance issues. So just use it. It's really good. Um, it works really well. Nobody really complains about it. Nobody gets stuck in it. It's very tested. Very just use it. It's really good. How do I select the right niche for my online store? All right. So there's a niche for everything. You can sell, I mean, everything. There's some crazy stuff out there. I've seen it. Um, there's a niche for everything. Everything sells to somebody. Now, some things are going to sell more than other things. Like I have a store where I sell a plug for RVs, and it turns all their lights on, like all their running lights. And that's a good niche. There's only one or two people out there doing anything like it, which I like. But the problem is there's a top to it, right? There's only going to be so many RVers in the world, and there's only going to be a subset of those people that want to turn on all their running lights. And so, this niche has a little bit of a top end to it. So that might be a consideration. But I would suggest that the niche that's right for you is the niche that you can stick to, like the niche that you enjoy. So, with my RV thing, I enjoy the concept of RVs. Even though I don't particularly own an RV, I like going to RV stores. I like everything about RVs. They're not boring, and the people that live in RVs are interesting. So I enjoy plugging into that, and I don't lose steam. If you're doing something that you don't care about, you're going to lose steam, and you're not going to make it to stage 4. And I'm not saying you have to make it to stage 4, but I think everybody's goal should be make it to stage 4, make it to where you can sell your store off for a couple million bucks or more. All right. Let's see here. Jaden says, I've already got a BC store that I can connect as many channels to, which is a massive bonus. Yes. This is something that I love about BigCommerce is their multi-store capability. I'm a big proponent of BigCommerce. I've been using BigCommerce as a store owner, and it's my preferred cart and has been for a decade. I like Shopify a lot as a second place. I don't have a third choice. It's just BigCommerce and Shopify, and I'll I'm sure I'll do many more videos about that. But one thing that's really nice about BigCommerce is the potential to do multiple stores from the same implementation, which means you can power 2 or 3 WordPress stores in addition to like your main BigCommerce store, or don't even use an actual BigCommerce storefront and just chain a couple WordPress sites or headless sites or whatever, to one BigCommerce instance. And you not only can manage multiple stores from one catalog of products, um, but it's also way lower cost of ownership. Because I guarantee you, if you had 5 Shopify stores, like that's not only 5 Shopify bills, but it's 5 sets of all the apps that connect to it too. That's enormous. So yeah, BigCommerce, BigCommerce has the right frame of mind with multi-store. I think that that's going to be huge for certain store owners, especially if you have like an inventory that you could sell in multiple ways, or if you have an inventory where you have, a bunch of stuff in one store location, but maybe you want to use some micro sites to focus on, subsets of that. Like with my RV stuff, maybe I have like an RV superstore that has, 5,000 products, but then I want to have like a microsite that just focuses on air vents for RVs. And you could do that with BigCommerce multi-store, and it doesn't have to cost you, a fortune because you're not really starting a whole new store. You're just starting a whole new URL that's branching off. So yeah. I think you're thinking right. Now, it's been a while since I used BigCommerce for WordPress, and I'm talking like 3 years. So, I don't know if it's come along, but it needed to come along 3 years ago. So, I don't know the current state of it. You'll have to let me know, Jaden, how it goes, but, uh, at least for your embedded checkout, definitely use embedded checkout. Alright, next question. What marketing strategies work best for early stage e-commerce businesses? Um, I wouldn't rush right into PPC. And I say that as a guy that has an agency that offers PPC. That shouldn't be your first choice. And the reason is you don't really know what works yet. And if you try to figure it out with PPC, it can be costly. So I really like the idea of, using some organic methods, working on your SEO, even though it's the slowest thing you can do, definitely a good idea, but because it's just going to take a while. There's learning lessons, but getting into SEO, maybe getting into like YouTube or TikTok, something like this where you can, put your product or your face or your voice out there and start directly talking to people, start hearing from people, like Jaden here. I mean, how great is it to be able to just meet somebody on the internet and exchange opinions? Think about how fast you'll learn what your audience wants, maybe getting your product into Amazon if it is your own branded thing and seeing how people react to it there. Like anything that you can do to get small amounts of traffic initially on your own without spending big bucks is a great idea because when you go on YouTube or when you use Facebook ads, which I'll just back up a step. I am okay with you using Facebook ads when you first start. I think you should do it yourself, though. I think you should place some ads. I think you should select some audiences, some targets, so that you get those learnings instead of just paying someone else, right? So don't start paying somebody like me to do PPC for you until you're ready to amplify your results, not try and figure out what works on day zero. So things like Facebook ads, YouTube, TikTok, SEO, other organic methods, all very valuable when you're first starting out. All right. Next question. I got a couple minutes left before my tea runs out. I hope my mic isn't picking that up. If it is, this just turned into what do they call that? The ASMR. All right. How can I effectively build and grow my email subscriber list? The best way to build and grow your subscriber list, especially at the beginning, is to realize you gotta you gotta give them something. You gotta give them a reason, and a lot of times that reason is a discount off their first purchase, or it's getting them into your email list because they made their first purchase. So a lot of people will throw anybody that actually purchases from them right into their email list, and that's probably the biggest way people grow their list initially. Now, you could get really creative if you're a really good marketer and focus on, what the market needs are and build a funnel and give content away, checklists and things like that. And that works for service businesses and it can work for an e-commerce business, but you got to give them a reason. So, giving them 10% off or 20% off or whatever on their first purchase, using pop-ups as much as everybody hates to hear it. Everybody hates them. They totally work. So consider a pop-up on your site. You can power that from Klaviyo. You don't need an extra app. And again, give them a reason to sign up, but put it in front of them, right? So that pop-up can be a really good way. Like a footer sign up it's an okay way. It's probably the weakest way, but I would still do it. Is put something in the footer and say like sign up and save 10% or whatever, and making sure people that go through your checkout are on your list. Those are the biggest ways. One way that people don't think about very much is exit intent pop-ups or exit pops. That's when somebody goes to leave your site and their mouse scrolls up to the tab like they're about to X out and then, "Oh, wait, don't leave. Here's 20% off." So exit pops can be a great way. And that's also not just a way to build your list, that's a way to, you know, hopefully like put them over the top and get them to not leave. Like literally don't leave. Here's 20% off. Okay, well, maybe I'll buy that hat because I'm gonna save, the 60 cents. Right? 10% pop-up discount never fails. Um, yeah, be sure, Jaden, let me know what you think of the BigCommerce for WordPress. It's been solid 3 years since I checked it out. So I'd love to know, if it's come along quite a bit. I, my team does build headless sites. We just focus on like React type sites and like Gatsby and Next and stuff like that. And those are extremely performant, but a whole different price range. BigCommerce for WordPress is supposed to be, you know, the easy way, the cheap way. And if they've sorted out some of the issues, that could be great. Let's see. Next question here. All right. Should I focus on SEO from the beginning or is it more important later on? I say at the beginning. I think it's a great thing to learn, even if you're just learning the basics. Start watching SEO videos, start listening to some SEO podcasts and things, and learn everything you can because the learning that you get, learning about SEO is going to be valuable for everything you do. Now, while I do think you should focus on SEO, not as your only focus, but as one of your focuses, as one of the things to learn on. Don't expect the results anytime soon. It takes time and it takes investment for SEO to pay off. And so the things that you do could take 3, 6 months or more, to pay off. But it's one of those things where it's kind of like saving for retirement. If you can save $1 a day right now, should you? And the answer is yeah, but you're not going to retire for 30 years. But start saving the dollar a day for sure. Um, okay, here's a great question. What are the funding options for e-commerce startups? Okay, so I hear people all the time saying like, "Ah, man, I want to start up a business, but I can't get a grant for it. I don't qualify because this or this." I don't know who does qualify for them. I've heard of people getting them, but every business owner that I've worked with, including myself, has started their business on credit cards. And I know that like that sounds crazy to say out loud because everyone says like don't use credit cards. But I mean, opening a business is a risk. And if you have like a ton of money laying around, then you're not asking this question. And if you don't have a ton of money laying around, it's because either you've been spending frivolously or you haven't made enough extra to save up. And so, you know, not having funding can become the excuse to never start up. And if you want it bad enough, then you want it enough to succeed. And if you don't want it bad enough to take a risk, then maybe this isn't for you. Like entrepreneurship is it's a madness, it's a disease almost. It's like, people tell me I'm a workaholic, and I'm not a workaholic because I love not working. I love playing with my kid. I love being present with my family. I love taking trips, but I also really love working. You know, I can stop. It's not like drinking, it doesn't consume me, but you have to want it so bad that you're going to do anything that you can take, that you have to do to succeed. You're going to be willing to try new things and pivot until you find success. And if that sounds like you, if you're willing to try new things and pivot until you find success, then you already know if you got to put it on a credit card, then you're going to put it on a credit card. Now, don't just blow your whole life savings. spend responsibly, but do the work, learn the stuff, don't be crazy, and don't feel bad if you put a lot of your startup costs on a credit card. Because, worst thing happens if you fail, you can always go back to that job and pay it off. But if you succeed, then life is different. I haven't worked I don't wanna, like, work shame anybody, right? Because if you're starting up and you're working your job, I'm not saying quit your job. In fact, if you have a job and you can build your startup on the side, that's amazing. And that's what most people should do. And I've had so many clients that started out that way and they were responsible and they paid their bills while they invested in their site. And eventually they were able to just quit their job altogether and live their passion, which is really cool. But don't feel bad. Don't feel bad about using a credit card. More people do it than you think. I would just say flat out, most businesses start up on credit cards because most of us are not trust fund babies. Most of us do not have connections. And I would say that the sooner you stop thinking that you're at a detriment by not having these connections and you realize nobody else really does either. It's like one in 1,000 people that have that stuff. Sooner you can move on and succeed. Don't worry about it. Do what it takes. Go out there and crush it, man. All right. Got a couple minutes later. Jaden says, yeah, see, here we go. Nothing's wrong with using credit cards. We all have to start somewhere. See, I'm telling you guys, more people than you think. I'm not like a credit card spokesman here, and I don't think credit cards are the answer to life. But you know, that's the funding that most people have access to. And hopefully you have access to that. And if not, start even smaller, but start. Don't let it hold you back because eventually you'll pay those credit cards off and eventually you'll figure out that those credit cards have great points. And what's really cool is every e-commerce store that I've worked with, including myself, I mean, it feels like you have virtually unlimited travel. And I told you guys I like to travel and I like to spend time with my family. And what's really cool is the more stuff I sell, the more stuff I have to buy to sell. And that's just more points and stuff on my credit card that I use to fly home to see my folks or, you know, fly to Disneyland or whatever. So I don't know. Don't feel bad about credit cards. What we're told about business is not necessarily what's true about business. So, don't feel bad about it. Okay, let's see, I got just a couple more minutes. Any last questions? Get them in here. What's the ideal time to start thinking about scaling my e-commerce business? The whole way. This is what this is stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's all scaling, you know? You have to figure out what your proof of concept is, and everything after that is scaling, you know, including finding profitability. Because again, at stage 1 and maybe stage 2, you might not really be profitable yet, you know? Stage 3, you should be profitable. Should be making some money. What are the pros and cons of drop shipping? Pros and cons of drop shipping in e-commerce. Drop shipping lets you start a lot quicker because you don't have to worry about products. So I like drop shipping for that. I dislike drop shipping for the fact that every other guy out there on YouTube and all the gurus tell you, you just start a drop shipping store, you make $1 million. They don't tell you that the profit margin in drop shipping is so low, that you can't run ads against it a lot of times, right? And the reason for that is drop shipping makes it not only easier for you, but it makes it easier for everybody else to sell the same exact products. And so if more people have access to the exact same product, the exact same SKU for the exact same cost, I mean, that's Amazon. It's a race to the bottom. What I do like about drop shipping is that you can use it to get started today. So if you have a product that you're manufacturing, for example, and it's going to take you, no matter what the factory says, it's going to take you the next year. They might say, yeah, you're going to be sitting on this in 2 months, but it's going to take longer than you think. And you still got to do packaging and all this other stuff. I bought a tea company over a year ago, and we're still working on factorization of the products. It takes longer than you think, but with drop shipping, you can get started today. And I'm a huge fan. If you're just getting started, if you're listening to this because you want to get started, I'm a huge fan of doing what you can to get the business started today, even if you're not making money. Because the sooner you have your business up and running, the sooner you're out there marketing, the sooner you're building your audience, right? And your audience takes time to grow. So if you can start drop shipping today and be selling things over the next year while you're working on your actual product, then by the time that your actual product is available to sell, you've already accumulated 5,000, 10,000 people who you can now sell your product to. Okay. Interesting comment from Yuri. That's all right. Let's see. What else do we have here? How's your sites? Another question here from Jaden. How's your sites doing after recent Google updates, especially the helpful content update that destroyed many sites? Well, I manage a lot of sites, including my own, and quite a few clients, and a lot of people are taking traffic hits this year, especially. A lot of them aren't losing sales, but they're taking traffic hits and not getting a lot of the traffic that didn't convert previously. So, some people are down this year, especially if they're not actively marketing. But it seems like everybody's down in traffic unless they're just really amplifying their traffic efforts, but they're not necessarily losing sales. So I feel like Google's doing a better job getting better content out there, which is good. And I don't I don't recommend focusing on anything to try and trick the search engine. So, like for me, when I say start learning SEO, I'm not saying start learning the tricks to get ahead right now. And there's been many tricks over the 13 years I've been in e-commerce, and I've never jumped on the bandwagon of these, because because sorry, crazy comments. I've never jumped on the bandwagon because they're tricking Google. Here's what matters with Google is content. They want this is SEO. This is what you need to know. SEO is about being the best content. It's about being the best answer for the question. And if you focus on that, if you focus on having the best content, then it doesn't matter what the trickery is because Google is always going to want to promote you. And so I like SEO because it helps you understand what people want to see, and focusing on high quality content on your site, on your YouTube, on your everything. It's just about how can you provide more value, and as long as you focus on that, you know algorithm updates aren't going to significantly hurt you. And hopefully you're still doing good. Just get some great content out there. All right. My gosh. Oh, these comments. Let's see here. A lot of well, I think I got some bots submitting comments. There's a lot to sort through here. First, diversifying your traffic sources is an excellent idea. Yeah, if you're entirely reliant on Google, then yeah, man, your traffic can change at any point. And the more there's bots out there, the more AI is out there generating content. Like you know, the more that this stuff is going to, potentially hurt you if you're not standing out. So focus on standing out, focus on original content, focus on some things that you can do, like maybe starting your own YouTube channel. Um, Focus on the things that other people aren't doing that much of. So right now, everybody's consumed with AI content, AI powered blogs, and I think AI is really cool. And there's a lot of stuff that you can do with it. But it's not gonna put your face on a YouTube channel where people can hear you and talk with you like you guys are doing with me right now. And so, focus on some of the stuff that's value-oriented content, and You'll learn a lot, and it's not something that an algorithm update is going to destroy. All right. Let's see. Any other questions? Let's see here. I got questions in two different places. Okay, last question. How important is content marketing for e-commerce startups? Super important. Content is king. You got to work on that content. And and I'm talking, blog posts if you can, your homepage content, your about page content. You need to be a real person. You need to be a real company on your site. Show people that you're not just, some Alibaba business that is you know, sending things all over the place with 30-day shipping times from China. Like, be a real person, be a real company, and work on those product descriptions, man. Product descriptions are huge. Product descriptions and category pages are huge for content. I'm going to do like a whole workshop, maybe like a mini course just around the content side of SEO because content is king. So I'll stop here for today. I really appreciate you guys being on here. Be sure to subscribe or follow wherever you guys are seeing me. I know this is broadcast on a couple different places right now, but I really appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to try and make a weekly thing out of this. I haven't nailed down a time that I'm going to be consistent about, but most likely Fridays. So check me out. I will probably see you guys next Friday. Thanks for joining me.